Okay. What is up, everyone? Happy Saturday. Today is what? We got March 1st of 2025. So, the sun's going to start coming this angle. Hold on. That's way better. So, I'm really grateful to be here for another Saturday. As you can tell, I'm breathing a little bit better post my deviated septum surgery that I had. It's still congested because there's some post-surgery inflammation, but it's starting to feel a little bit better every day, and I'm good enough that I'm able to do my best to talk, provide a lecture today, and it's always a privilege to speak to whoever out there may be listening, whether there's one of you, two of you, 10, 20, 100, who cares? It's just a moment to take some time out of my day and hopefully offer something that might help someone else out in this journey we call life. So if you're here for the first time, my name is Param. I do this, frequently. I used to say every Saturday, but just too many things are coming in between, and sometimes it's too challenging for me to get here every Saturday. One of my goals is to create a schedule that I could post at the beginning of the month that will show which Saturdays I will be here. And I think that's something that I promise I'm going to put together, and I owe it to you. So you're not just kind of figuring out if it's going to go on or not. But I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I am licensed as an addictions specialist. I teach at Saddleback College in Mission Viejo, California. I teach a couple classes there and hopefully be teaching a couple more soon. I coach high school basketball. I do some performance coaching for specific business executives and athletes on the side. I'm an avid pickleball player. I, play 2-3 hours a day, 6 days a week. Hey, addiction, as long as it's a healthy addiction, it's okay, right? At least that's what I tell myself. I truly believe in this thing called the possibility of human transformation. I do. I just believe that all human beings, whether they were living a certain way of life, whether they, I put it this way. Sometimes we look around the life we have. We look at how we're living it. We look at the things we're doing. We think of the people that are there or not there. And we wonder to ourselves, like, whatever happened? Like, how did I end up here? Whatever happened to the life that I thought I was going to have, or the way I thought life was going to be? And if you're in that space and you're looking around and you don't like it, the beauty of it is you could change it. We can transform this human experience that we have into one that is more, that we feel more connected to, that we feel happier, that we feel more, hopeful, empowered, more connections to self and others. And that's what I believe in. I believe it's accessible for all of us, like I say, including myself, because we're all in this together. No one is better or less than anyone else. And we all have the same choice to tap into that transformation or not. So, today I'm going to be talking about, codependency is something that comes up a lot. And oftentimes it's one of those things that people have not a clear understanding of what it is. If you come from, if you have a loved one in your house that potentially might be addicted or struggling with mental health challenges, or they've experienced a lot of trauma in their lives, and you've been told that, hey, you're really codependent. You enable this person a lot, and you just don't understand what it means, because the things that you do for this person are out of your heart. They're out of love. So when they tell you that what you're doing is hurting this person, you might think to yourself, what do you mean? The last person on planet Earth I'm going to hurt is this child of mine, or this spouse of mine, or my parent. I love these people. What do you mean I'm hurting them? My child is more important to me than anything else. I mean, these are the things that people say. So they get frustrated when people are talking about their behaviors are codependent, or they're enabling negative behaviors. So today we're going to kind of shed light on that and share a couple of quotes that potentially might help you understand codependency in a different way that's not so personal. It's not like personal attack. So these quotes are obviously written out there, and they weren't written about you. They were just written. And if you identify with some of these thought processes or patterns or ways of being, then maybe there is something there for you. And if that's the case, I strongly encourage you to just pick up maybe a light reading. It's called Codependent No More by Melody Beattie, or The Language of Letting Go, a very good daily book that the person has. And maybe even try out some codependent anonymous meetings, or maybe go seek therapy for the fact that you are being called a codependent. Because I will tell you this, and this is the truth. People think that codependency happens when something in life goes bad. It's not the case. Codependency happens long before the present moment. Codependency happened as a byproduct of a potential dysfunctional upbringing in which you had to be the role of a caretaker. You had to take care of other people's needs. You had to put someone else's needs above your needs, someone else's safety above your safety. You had to give up your own life to tend to the lives of others. You know, people that come from addicted households and the mom and dad are addicted, one of the kids oftentimes becomes the parent, you know, takes care of the parents, takes care of the siblings. If there's abuse in the house, one of the kids protects, you know, the mom or dad or whoever's being abused or the siblings from the abuse. If you come from a house that someone's really mentally ill and they're just so depressed they can't leave their house and you have to do the laundry and pick up the slack, you know, codependency happens in times like that. It has nothing to do with like your loved one having an addiction problem. You know, I remember when I was a newer therapist, there was this mom, and I was giving this talk on codependency to her, and she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I have never been codependent in my life. I was like, okay. I only became codependent when I found out my kid is using OxyContin. I'm like, okay. And so, you know, I get this information and I talk to the kid later on. I'm like, yeah, so you told me your mom is really controlling and codependent, but she said she's never been. So what do you mean she's never been? She's like, ever since I was like in second grade, she was in charge of everything in the school. When I started to get into sports, she was in charge of every single sport organization, volunteer organization I was in. Ever since I got into high school, she became the president of the PTA. I mean, she's been in my life at all times, controlling every aspect of my life. But to that mom, all those things were because she was loving, protecting her child, right? So hopefully you understand that a little bit better now. And good morning to everybody saying over here, we got what do we got here? Terry, I really enjoy your experience, strength, and hope you share. I watched a lot of your videos in IOP. I look for the similarities and not the differences. Hey, Terry, I don't know who you are, but I'm really grateful to hear that these talks resonated with you at some point in your life and they helped you when you were in a facility. You know, and everyone else here. We got Jim, good morning. Jada, good morning. Mom and Dad, good morning. I'll see you guys around 1:30 whenever I'm done with pickleball, and I'll come eat whatever food you have in your house. So I'm going to share some quotes with you right now. And these quotes are going to hopefully help you understand codependency a little bit more, right? Because the more I explain it, the more you might not understand. So like I'm going to have the banner going on the bottom. At any moment, you can stop me and ask a question. So feel free to do so. But here are the quotes. So the first one says, few things can make us feel crazier than expecting something from someone who has nothing to give. You know, so anytime I hear the word expectations, expecting, it's always an alarm, right? And people like Jim definitely understand why this is important. Because expectations are known as resentments in construction. The higher my expectation is of someone, the lower my level of serenity, like the peace I have in life. And the lower my expectations of our people, the higher my serenity is. So it's like an inverse relationship, a zero sum, right? Levers work together. And sometimes, you know, the example I have is perfect is, let's say you're in a relationship with someone and all you want the person to do is talk to you with like true emotions and what they're really going through. Now, and you get frustrated because all you want them to do is just open up and talk. And it's a very reasonable, by the way, ask, and it's something that's in healthy relationships should be there. But let's say that person never learned how to talk, how to identify their emotions, first of all, then to speak about what it is that they feel in a way that is, you know, captures the essence of their feeling. Because in their life, no one ever talked about emotions. Everybody suppressed emotions. If anything, the only emotions they ever saw was anger. The only emotions they ever saw was just like, you know, like just nothing. It's neutral. And now the person in the relationship wants them to talk with their emotions. They can't do it. See, you're expecting someone to give you something they don't have. Now, here's the thing. Do I say that's a reasonable thing for all times in relationships? No. I mean, at some point, the person has to identify the fact that, hey, I'm horrible at identifying my emotions. And on top of that, I don't know how to talk about my emotions. So they have to do the work to learn. We don't necessarily learn everything in life when we're supposed to learn it, and that's okay. Who said there's a timeline? You learn it when you learn it. And so whenever you sometimes parents, I've seen, loved ones come through our program and the parents they expect them to go to work and go to school and all this stuff. But the person themselves in that moment, they're just trying to wake up in the morning and have the desire to live. They're trying to have the will to just not pick up a drug. They're trying to process all the guilt and shame for all the things they've done in the past. I mean, they can't even comprehend, but then the parents get frustrated that they're not doing these things for their future. It's kind of like, sometimes we just got to let our people go, let them just be where they're at. Live and let live is a good way to put it. But codependents don't do that. They don't live themselves, and they don't let other people live either, believe it or not. It's kind of like they don't live and they control, which is we're going to talk about here in a little bit. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I got this cup I like. So let me show off my new cup. So it's got a little thing you take out, it lets it steep the tea. And then you take out the tea that's been steeped. It's a little cool little package. You put it in the lid so it doesn't make a mess, because if I don't have that, I'll make a mess everywhere. And then you drink the tea. This is a combination of jasmine, pearl green tea, and Earl Grey black tea. It's a great combination. I suggest you try it sometime. So now here's another one that really captures codependency to its max. When a codependent is drowning, someone else's life flashes before their eyes. So why is this an important statement? Well, we know the actual quote. When you're drowning, your life flashes before your eyes. The things you should have done, shouldn't have done, things you left unsaid, the regrets. But codependents aren't that way. When they're drowning, they're thinking about someone else. And what does drowning actually mean, right? This is a metaphor. So I work with parents that they might be drowning financially. Right? They can't even afford the cost of treatment anymore. They're taking out mortgages and 401ks. They have own mental health challenges. They have autoimmune diseases because of all the amount of stress they've endured. Their family's broken up. There's marital problems. The siblings are all effed up. They're drowning. They're drowning themselves. But the life of their loved one is flashing before their eyes. I know some parents call that love, but I mean, what kind of love is the fact that when you're drowning yourself, when you're drowning yourself, it's not really showing love. It's showing you don't even care about yourself. It's okay, I'll drown, so that person doesn't have to drown. And how has that been working for you, by the way? For those people that take it themselves so the other person doesn't have to, at the end of the day, they also take it. Because if you prevent them from it, they're never going to learn it. So both of you are now drowning in the name of love. It's such a twisted way to look at it, but there's a lot of truth to it. So we have Lance at coffee. Hey, Lance. Hey, good to see you, brother. I've heard through the grapevine that you're finishing up the graduate program. Proud of you. I know it's a rough stretch, but it's worth it. So get that damn graduate degree and always good to see you here. And coffee's good. I don't get me wrong. I like coffee, but tea's got a little magic too. Just saying. Just try it sometime. The next one says, guilt can stop us from taking healthy care of ourselves. This codependence, sometimes they have so much guilt about the way that their life has impacted their children's life, that they just they let that guilt run wild into the world, because maybe they had some financial problems or divorces or they struggled and the kids got negatively impacted. This happens all the time, by the way, with if parents get divorced and their kids are in junior high or high school and the kids they have a really hard time adjusting, so they start acting out, they can get away with pretty much murder with one of the parents that's the guilty one. Literally, that parent just becomes their best friend and just lets them get away with anything because they're so guilty. And the problem is they stop taking care of themselves too because of that guilt. These are all signs of codependency. So what I'm trying to do is I tried to capture a bunch of, sorry, Lance, real quick. It's not this Tuesday, so please don't come. We start back on March, I'm going to write it here, March 18th. And I'll have a basketball banquet, and I'm still recovering from something. So at 6:30. Text me. I'll give you the details. That's the next one. So then we got, what do we got? Oh, this one's good for the call. So this is very important. If you only take one thing away from today's talk, this should be the one. Worrying, obsessing, and controlling are all illusions. Man, I'll even go one step deeper. You ready for this? They're delusions. When you worry about someone else, when you obsess about what he, she, they're doing, when you try to control their behaviors, you're only creating a false sense of illusion, false sense of safety that what you are doing is actually impacting that. See, people do what they do. Now, you can worry about them, but just know that worrying doesn't do anything. If anything, it only makes you sick. Chronic worrying is going to mess up your autoimmune system. I can get deep into it in another talk. And then you're susceptible to being sick. Obsessing over things makes you not think about the things in your life that are important because you're giving all of your bandwidth to something that's out of your control. So you're not taking care of home base. Controlling behavior, the only reason why we become really controlling is when things go out of control. We become over-controlling to be able to overcompensate for the thing that's out of control, thinking that the more you control, the better it gets. But here's, ready for this? The more you control something, the more it becomes out of control. Completely counterintuitive, but it's true. So this happens, by the way, worrying, it doesn't happen with addiction. Like I said, codependency doesn't. People usually come from childhoods that they had to worry a lot about the environment, what's happening next, people moving. And obsessing is a form of coping in the moment to not think about self. Obsess about something else. I know one thing, one of my characteristics of my addiction is I have a very obsessive nature behavior when it comes to things that I like pursue. So whether it's something as stupid as tea, whether it's like finding a specific shoe, whether it's diving into a specific sport, I go really deep into it. And here's the thing, like these are all positive things for the most part, But the more I obsess about those things, the less I think about self. So it could also be a negative thing at some point. And controlling is people that are controlling in life. You usually come from childhoods that things were out of control a little bit. And they controlled their own environment. So sometimes they control their bodies with eating disorders, self-harm. Sometimes they control their space, become very OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders can get created from it because they're thinking that they're actually creating a false sense of security. If that makes sense. That's what we got here. Okay, Jessica, hope your surgery went well. Thank you. It's going okay. Obsession, a thought that outweighs all other thoughts. That's a good way to put it, Jim. Thank you for that. So let's say you're having some thoughts in life, good, bad, and different, but you start to obsess. But based on what Jim's saying here, which is like a master counselor, what he's saying over here is the obsession, the weight that obsessing has is more than all other thoughts. So when you're having that obsessive thought, all the other thinking, sometimes it could even be good thinking, it's going to be outweighed by that obsession. So you got to be careful for what that obsession is, I try to go in and out of obsession. It's kind of like a vice because I don't like to stay there too long. So what's the next one we have? Sometimes people behave in certain ways to provoke us to react in certain ways. I call this taking people hostage. And I'm not talking about like the literal sense of it. There are a lot of people with addiction problems that take their parents hostage. And what I mean by that is they will say something on the phone that will cause a family member to feel a certain thing. It's usually down to money. It usually comes down to money. Or not having money to do something, or not having how about this? Not having resources. That's usually what it is. Because they know if they say a certain thing, it's going to provoke a certain reaction. And what happens is it's usually around some boundary that has been set. So they push the boundary. They push the boundary knowing that the parent's going to respond the same way. And how do they know that the parent's going to respond a certain way? Because they've done it over and over and over again. So Jim, he's regularly one of the people that says, do not ever set a boundary unless you're willing to uphold it. Like, don't even set it. Don't even act like you're trying to set it. If you know you're not going to uphold it, don't do it. Because what happens is they're going to push the boundary. And if you let go, that boundary was meaningless. If anything, they know that your boundaries are meaningless. So Another good thing, by the way, the flip side of this, not really about codependency, just about like the healthy version of this. If you don't like the way someone's treating you, treat them differently. And I don't mean that in a bad way, by the way, like treat them bad differently. Just treat them differently. If you don't like someone's body language, the way they kind of like, the way the look they have on their face, and you're just like, why is this person always like this? Like when you see them, maybe bring some positivity and see what happens. Because that person is the way they are always. And there's a chance because of this look they have on their face, they show defensive. Everyone around them probably thinks the same thing. That person doesn't care. That person's mean. But as soon as you break it, like, what was the Home Alone? Have you ever seen Home Alone, the movie? How the little kid is just terrified of that old man. Terrified of him. And as soon as he sees him, he runs away. And guess what? Everyone else does too, because he looks a little intimidating. But as soon as he talked to him, like, in a kind way, realize, hey, like, this dude is like a very kind grandfather that hasn't seen his grandkids and he misses them. Hasn't talked to his son and he misses them. When you treat people differently, they react differently. It's a really good learning tool. I like this one. It says a codependent is reactionary. They overreact. They underreact, but rarely do they act. So when a codependent gets their emotions triggered, first thing they do is they overreact. They go 0 to 100 real quick. And I mean, logic is out the door because they're just in like problem solve mode. They're overreacting. Sometimes something bad happens, they underreact because they don't want to do something that's going to piss the other person off. It's horrible. They brush it under the rug, or they say it's not that big of a deal. But rarely do they act. And what does that mean, actually? Acting is very similar to like responding to something. So they experience an emotion that really dysregulates them, and they don't do anything about it at first. Not that they're going to like let it go. They're going to address it, but they're not going to address it when they're emotional. They wait. They let the wave of emotions pass, because guess what? The behavior is not going to change significantly that much in that moment. And then they maybe talk to a few people, maybe they sleep on it, maybe they do some journaling, but then they come and they have a conversation, follow-up about it. But in a way that's calm, in a way that they're able to get their point across and share their emotional experience and talk about their fears. But overreacting and underreacting, it perpetuates the same cycle of dysfunction in a codependent dance. What do we got here? Elvira? Is that the name? Hello? Nice to have you here, my friend. Okay, so now the next one we have here, I think I like this one. There's only 2 more here. This one says, we do not lead others into the light by stepping into the darkness with them. Ooh, how cool is that? So, sometimes parents are doing okay in life. And by the way, when I use parents, I hope you know that you can replace spouse, your significant other. You could replace child. I just use the parent dynamic because it's the one that's typically used to show like a codependent relationship when it comes to addiction, mental health. But obviously in couple relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, fiance, significant other, partners, whatever you want to call it, like it's all there too. So let's say one person is doing okay and one person is really struggling. And the person that's doing okay relinquishes all of their life, the things that they're doing, and goes into the depths in the darkness and tries to pull out the person that they love so much. Pull them out, save them, rescue them. But what happens is as you go in the darkness, instead of you pulling them out, the darkness pulls you in. And now there's 2 people in the dark. You ever hear that blind leading the blind? That's what happens, man. And so if you can't do that, then what do? Well, someone's in the darkness. Just let them be there. And when I say let them be there, I hope you know there's ways to kind of like support people when they're in that spot. That's not for this talk right now, but like, I'm not saying just let them go. There's ways that you can love somebody in that darkness in an appropriate way. But when they're in the darkness, let them be there. And what you're responsible for is continue to take all the actions, the things you do, the way you do them, how you do it. Continue to live a healthy life. Like stay in the light. You don't need to go there. You just let them know, hey, whenever you want to come out of there, I will help you. You don't go in there and pull them out. It doesn't work that way. Whenever you're done being in the darkness, I'll help you. But live your own life. eventually that darkness becomes so dark, and hopefully they make it out of it. Some people don't. I'm being honest with you. Sometimes people don't. So there is a risk factor to all this stuff. But hopefully it gets so dark that they say, I'm ready to come out. They'll come out themselves, or they'll say, please help me. Because when someone's saying, please help me, they're no longer pulling anymore. When you go out there and take them, they're just totally, they're almost like limp. It's like you could drag them out. They'll come out. They'll follow you like a wounded animal. Because there is something called attraction rather than promotion. You are a magnet in life. All life is energy. Whether you believe this stuff or not, to each their own. All life is energy. Everything we do, there's energy involved to it. You have an energy field. And when your energy field is positive, when you're in the light, and someone's negative, opposites, you're going to eventually start to attract people. You know, there's a thing to it. There's a whole attraction thing that can happen here. And people learn by what they see, not by what they hear or what you tell them. That's the rule 101 for like parenting. You know, you think that you're telling your kids how to be and what to do when they're little. The odds of your children not understanding what you're saying because they don't have the words or the vocabulary is probably like 90%. Like when they're 3, 4, 5 years old and you're talking to them, they have no idea what you're talking about. You might think they do. They might know a few words, kind of like a puppy. Like a puppy understands a few words, but if you have a conversation with them, they're clueless like a dog. Humans are very similar. I mean, they have more, don't get me wrong, they're more complex. They have more ability to learn more words, and they able to put sentences together. I get all that. But an adult talking to a child, unless you know how to talk to a child, it's going to miss. So how do children learn in life then if it's not by what you tell them? But what they see. You know how many kids come from a family and then later on in their own life, they're repeating the same things they saw, not the things they heard, the things they saw, good, bad, and different. So if you want someone to come into recovery, then you got to model recovery. You got to model health. You got to model good decisions. You know, so kind of like the best example, if someone's smoking cigarettes, but tells their kid, hey, smoking cigarettes is bad for you. Don't smoke cigarettes. Smoking cigarettes is going to kill you. You're going to get lung cancer where they're smoking it. Later on, the kid's smoking cigarettes. And the parent says, didn't I tell you to not smoke cigarettes? You told them, but people don't learn by what you tell them. They learn by what they see, right? And the last one here just says, I just want to always tap into something called gratitude. Make sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. So if you are struggling in some part of your life right now, I have a gut feeling that the number one thing it's a perspective thing. You have lost perspective, and you are not into gratitude. And you might say, there's nothing in my life to be grateful for. I say, yes, there is. You're just not looking. You know, maybe on the surface you can't find it. Dig a little deeper. Still can't find it? Dig a little deeper. I mean, if they didn't dig deep, would they found things like gold and diamonds and freaking in oil? If they just looked at the surface, there's no gold here. Go underneath. You could have been a billionaire. You know, we're billionaires. You know, a lot of things they could do. So I'm not going to go there. I want you to know that it feels really good to be here and talk to you. Really grateful for the opportunity to lead this, 30-minute session. I will put a schedule up. I will get organized and put a schedule up this week that will show you all the days that I plan on doing these to honor your time. There are some comments here. Let me just see what they said. Okay, so I am in a program called Untangling Relationships, which is all about codependency. It's a doctoral program, and this talk speaks about my childhood was beyond dysfunctional. I am in recovery. I have 90 days. Congratulations, my man. That's freaking awesome. Oh, there we go. That's Mona, too. That was who Elvira was. Ryan, Hamid, good to see you. Jim. All right. Love and appreciate all of you. Keep on stepping in the light and staying in the light. I will see you back when I see you. Take care, everyone.